Hebrews class was interesting this morning. John presented to us a concept that is just, I think, mind-boggling. The idea being that what we're going to be in heaven, which is the age to come, what's going to take place there, how you're going to feel, the way you're going to respond to Jesus. When you actually see Him, He's there. You interact with Him. You surrender to Him, the kind of feelings you're going to have, the kind of absolute surety you're going to know in those moments, the kind of, He'll take care of everything, everything's okay now, the kind of security you're going to have then. That's what you ought to have now by faith. In fact, that's the test. You can't have it then if you don't have it now. That's an awesome concept, isn't it? Well, prove it. Can't. But I know it. As sure as I'll know it then, I know it now. By faith. Beautiful concept. And then Nathan just, blew us away with the Levite concept that we're the Levites of the New Testament. It's a great concept. So I officially pronounce that the official dress of the Cross-Style Church is Levi's. Because that's who we are. Oh, wow. Great morning. Well, let's look at chapter 5. I appreciate you letting me be a pastor in this place. And you have no idea how much restraint it takes on Sunday morning and Saturday night to boil everything down to simple statements. Not the emphasis on simple, but a few statements. There's just so much. And so let's look at, we are making progress, by the way. We're looking at verse 7, which is the fifth beatitude. So we've done 4. Woo-hoo. Yes, sir. Verse 1, and seeing the multitude, he went up on a mountain, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him. And he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the land. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. We cry out to you today for mercy, O God. We need mercy. Oh, have mercy on us. Have mercy on us. When we see your greatness and how pitiful we are, we cry for mercy. When we see your great righteousness and the stains in our own lives, we cry for mercy. When we view the cross and think of what we've done to you, we cry for mercy. When I hear my voice in the midst of the crowd that scream for your blood, oh God, I cry for mercy. I cry for mercy. I cry for mercy. How indifferent I've been when I should have been burning in my bones. Oh, I cry for mercy. My world has died all around me, and I've been all wrapped up in puny, insignificant things that didn't even matter and wouldn't matter 100 years from now. Oh, God, I cry for mercy. I cry for mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy upon me today. And teach me your merciful ways. In your name I pray. Amen. It's awful to be scrawny, the runt. You come out of school, grade school, and bullies are hiding behind every tree. They jump out, they grab you, they take your arm in those days and twist it behind your back. They wanted me to cry for mercy. I may be scrawny, but am I ever stubborn? they'd go away after I cried for mercy, and they would strut their shoulders and talk about how powerful they were and how strong they were and how in charge they were, and all that they got out of that spilled out of their own arrogance and out of their own pride. And they had mercy on me because I cried for mercy. But that isn't anything that Jesus is talking about here. That doesn't even fit in the realm of his beginning thought process. That doesn't relate to what I just described to you, doesn't relate even to the words that are laid out in this passage. Because mercy is a sign of weakness. Mercy is a sign of those who have power and strength and can give it to the weak. That's the whole context in which we think of mercy. But that is not his context at all. He is introducing, ladies and gentlemen, a concept into his world that was absolutely so radical and unheard of that it's like he invented it. And indeed he did. He is ushering a concept into his generation and spilling it into ours that is so unique that nobody had ever heard about it before. Yeah, there's inclinations of it in the Old Testament. I can go that. You can see Jesus in the Old Testament. I understand that. But it was so camouflaged with their culture and so camouflaged with the oral traditions of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and all that was going on in the Jewish focus on themselves. It was so camouflaged with all of that somehow, some way, it was hidden and not seen as God intended it to be, even in an Old Testament. And Jesus introduced it. It is a Christian quality and did not exist until the person of Jesus showed up. In fact, if you look at our day, you discover, ladies and gentlemen, that this concept that he's giving here isn't found any place outside of Christianity. No world religion has this. None. The cultures all around us don't know about this. Go down your street and talk to people, and they don't recognize what he's talking about. This is radical. This is introduced. In the Roman culture of that hour, they had 4 cardinal virtues that they really held on to. They are wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. Those 4 things. But did you notice that mercy is not one of them? Because it wasn't in their concept. To have mercy on people didn't fit into what they considered to be valuable and significant. They had never heard of this. This is a Christian concept. This begins with the person of Jesus Christ. Now again, the word mercy, you can find it abundant times in the Old Testament, I understand. But it was so overshadowed with the law and punishment, and the Jews had so ingrained themselves into that they totally missed what God was bringing them to. It was like a platform bringing them to what Jesus was going to present to them, but they didn't get this because they didn't get that. Does that make sense? So they missed the whole thing because this concept was so out of there. When you come to the Jewish perspective, the Pharisaical Jewish theology, you discover that this is not where they are. For instance, a Pharisee would have this as his beatitude. Blessed are the righteous, for God will have mercy on them, or be merciful to them. See, that would be their beatitude, which really goes on to say, hey, blessed are the righteous, for God will be merciful to them. Why? Well, because they earn it. They deserve it. After all, they're really something. After all, look how well they've done. That's not what he's talking about. See, he's not talking about mercy in terms of, oh, I'll have that for you because you deserve it. You're a special group. You've moved up to a certain level. You have achieved certain things. Therefore, I can't have mercy towards you. It's not on that basis at all of what he's talking about here. In fact, Jesus is going to pound this through the Sermon on the Mount and literally highlight this in his life experience. For instance, in the very prayer, and John referred to this, but in the very Lord's Prayer in the Sermon on the Mount in chapter 6, he says things like, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." How could you pray that? Oh God, have mercy on me so that I can in turn have mercy on others. And the whole prayer smells of this mercy of what I don't deserve, and mercy of what I haven't earned, and mercy of, oh my, how I should be treated. And you have been so merciful to me that I'm going to live in this overwhelming state of mercy. And why, it just has to spill out of me and include everybody around me. How could it not? Why? Because I've experienced such mercy and forgiveness from God. How could I not possibly forgive you? And you can look at the Sermon on the Mount and say, well, that's a sermon, that's philosophical, that's theological, that's just laid out and good for him, it's nice truth. But you see, Jesus lived that thing out. And when he got done with his life, man, he's hanging on a cross saying what? Father, forgive them. That's what he started with here. And suddenly it isn't nice philosophy and it isn't nice theology. Suddenly it's life reality. It's demonstrated in the very essence of the person of Jesus, because he is doing that and did that and demonstrated that. That's phenomenal. I hate to present to you these problems with the text all the time, but man, it's just seems to be so important. See, if you study many of the scholars and ask most people around the church about this beatitude, what they will tell you this says is, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. They will tell you that what this means is that when I have mercy towards others, I will receive mercy back. So if I want mercy, I have to give mercy. So come on, folks, buck up. Let's be merciful to each other. Let's be forgiving. Hey, let's be tender and kind. Come on, go out of your way. Bite your lip. Don't hit him. Have a little mercy. And if you will do that, you will receive mercy back. Now, I admit to you that you could get that out of this beatitude. But in order to do that, you have to reach into verse 7, which is the beatitude. You have to pull it out of its section. You have to not see it in its sequence. You have to get rid of the sequence and just see it as a unit all by itself. And then you have to adjust the words. You have to see it in the English translation, which lends itself to that concept. But I want to propose to you this morning, if you leave this beatitude in the sequence where it is, you see it in the flow of what he's doing, and you go back and see what the original words really are saying, you discover, good night, that isn't even close. That's not what he's saying. He's not encouraging you to be merciful so you can get mercy. That's not what he's doing at all. And I want to try to convince you of that. I'm going to try to be very pinpointing, particular. Let's start with the idea of the statement. In other words, let's look at exactly what he says. Verse 7. Blessed Makarios, you understand the word. We've been talking about it. It's congratulations. It's you are fortunate. Every one of the Beatitudes starts like that. So this is a whack on the back. This is, woo, you're something, man. This is, wow, look what's going on. Oh, good night. Congratulations. You just graduated. Congratulations. Hey, you're in. Congratulations. You're there. Wow, he's not talking about where you're going. He's talking about where you are. He's not talking about what's going to happen to you. He's talking about, whoa, this has already taken place. Whoa, congratulations to you. Now, there's the subject. And the subject has been the same in every single one of them. And again, we've talked about this. It's the article the, or it can be translated this one or that one or this or that. But it's the article the. It's the main subject. Well, congratulations, thee. That doesn't make any sense. Who's thee? Well, it has to have the adjective in order for you to know. So the third word is merciful. Ela-amin. Amin is the word. Ela-amin, which is the word merciful. It's an adjective. And it modifies the main subject, which is thee. So the main subject is thee, modified by merciful, which is the merciful thee, or merciful ones. So it's congratulations, and there is no verb, so it's congratulations, oh, merciful ones. It's a statement. I'm congratulating you, you're there. I'm congratulating you, you've arrived. I'm congratulating, why? You're the merciful ones. Now, it's interesting that the Greek word for merciful, which is in this case an adjective, is only used twice in the whole New Testament. Now, as a noun, it's used many more times. And as a noun, it's used, many more times. Merciful as an adjective is used several times in the Old Testament, but only twice in the New Testament. Obviously, this is one of them. It describes you. Now, it's not surprising to us that this word merciful, an adjective, is used in the New Testament to describe Jesus. Hebrews 2:17. Therefore, in all things, this is a key verse. We'll come back to it again. Therefore, in all things, he had to be made like his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in all things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people. So Jesus is described as a merciful one. Isn't it significant? He starts out in the Beatitudes by whacking you on the back and saying, woo, you got it too. And he's the only other one that's described as having it. Interesting. So if you want to know what the content of being a merciful one is all about, would you not look at Jesus for the content, which would be a detailed study on it all on its own. Significant. So let's go to a definition. How do you define what he's talking about here? Blessed are, congratulations, wow, whack you on the back, you're the merciful ones. What on earth am I? He says, let me describe it for you. Number one, by the way, there's three aspects to this definition. Number one is the focus. Now, this isn't hard, come on. It's a focus. The focus of being a merciful one is always on others. Well, yeah. If I'm receiving mercy, I'm receiving it from someone who's a merciful one, and the focus would be on him, and I would be the others. If I'm the one that is having mercy to you, I am the merciful one, and you're the one receiving mercy. So merciful one, being an adjective, always focuses on the individual, always focuses on the individual to which you're giving mercy. So when he's congratulating the merciful ones, he's not congratulating ones who have received mercy. He's congratulating those individuals who are giving mercy, who are extending mercy, who are living in the flow of mercy. Well, if you say, I'm going to have mercy on myself, therefore, I would be the one giving mercy and I would be the one receiving mercy, but we don't call that mercy. We call that arrogance, and we call that pride, and we call that self-centeredness, and we call that rationalization, and we call that excusing and self-denial. Did that make sense? I can go over it again. So the focus of mercifulness, being merciful, is never on me. It's always on others. It's what is flowing through me towards others. So every time I talk about being a merciful person, I'm talking about that individual as having, giving, extending mercy to someone else. Jesus is a merciful, faithful high priest, meaning what? Oh, he's pouring it out. Mercy is coming from his very being. He's extending mercy to us because the focus of mercy is always on others. Now, the second thing really upsets me in the definition. Got to take these three ideas, which are aspects of the definition. First one, the focus is always on others. Merciful, always on others. Second, it is a feeling. I hate that. I'm not a feeling person. It's better not to feel. I like statements like, I'm not on the mountaintop, I'm not in the valley, I'm on the way. Oh, I like that. Why? Because it downplays feelings. I'm not higher than a kite. I don't get lower than a snake either. Why? Then you come into this idea of merciful, and it is a feeling, an emotion. This sucks. I suppose we're going to get all feely. I don't know what to do with it. There it is. See, I would prefer for being a merciful one to be describe activities I do to you. Hey, I let you off the hook. I'm a merciful one. I let you get by. I'm a merciful one. I forgive you. I'm a merciful one. See, I would calculate it out. I could line up with Peter. See, the world system said, don't ever forgive them. Don't ever forgive them. When they do something to you, don't forgive them. In fact, calculate and do it to them before they do it to you. That's what the world said. The pagan world Peter lived in. Then Peter came along, and of course he was a Jew. And the Jew said, no, don't calculate what they're going to do and do it to them before they do it. And if they do it, don't ever forgive them. That's the world. But Judaism said, no, when they do it to you, do it back to them. They knock out one tooth, you knock out one tooth. They poke your eye, you poke their eye. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Hey, well, that's much better than a world. Figure out what they're going to do to you and do it to them before they do it to you. That's better than that. So you got to say to a Jewish world, wow, you're way up the road. Peter, the disciple, came along and said, yeah, the world says do it. Figure out what they're going to do it to them before they do it to you. The Jews say, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, do to them what they do to you. Jesus, how would you go for this? Since I'm a disciple of Christ, how would you go for this? See, this has no feeling in it at all. See, this has all, just think it through, logically lay it out. See, this, I like this. See, Peter comes along and says, how about forgiving them 7 times? Get a black book. Hey, 1 time, okay, I forgive you. 2 times, I forgive you. 3 times, I'm keeping record. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, smash! Why? Because I forgave you 7 times, and that's it. I've been merciful. And I can justify that. More than 7 times, and you're a caretaker. You're contributing to what they're doing. See, that all makes sense to me. But what he's talking about doesn't have anything to do with making sense. I know, I don't like that. He's not talking about logically. He's not talking about what makes sense. He's talking about a feeling. And mercy is not an obligation. Mercy is not a law. And when law and obligation are involved, you know what the result of that is? Pride and arrogance. See, when I got the black book and I check you all 7 times and then smash you, I was justified. See that? Hey, I've really been merciful. I've put up with a lot. See, that's all pride, arrogance. And what he's talking about is the total opposite of that. So that can't be. This is a feeling. And again, I don't like that. You never define merciful in terms of an act you do. You have to define it in terms of what you feel inside. Why didn't we skip this one? That's awful. I don't like that at all. Well, what is he exactly talking about? Merciful is the idea of seeing an individual in some kind of affliction or difficulty and identifying it to the point that you feel what they feel. You see their circumstance the way they see it. A long time ago I told you this, but you probably forgot it. We were holding a camp meeting about 50 miles from a big town, big town. And the camp meeting closed on Sunday morning. So one of the local churches in the big town scheduled us to come that Sunday night to preach in their church. So he took us from the camp meeting, drove us, and we were just making conversation with the pastor on our way to this service. In that area, there had been a flood. It had happened about a year ago. There had been a large flood. All the rivers flooded, and all the homes that were in those lower areas were actually flooded out. It was awful and ruined. And the government came in and said, listen, we'll give you two options. Number one, you can sell your property to us. We'll buy all your properties at fair market value. And you can move and build someplace else. Or, number two, we'll loan you money at a low interest rate, and you can rebuild. Lots of people sold. Moved out, said, we're not risking this again. It hadn't happened for years and years and years, but hey, we're not risking this again. So they sold to the government, and off they went to build someplace else. But then there were lots of people that said, we're not leaving our house. We like it here. It's by the river. We enjoy it. No, it probably will never happen again, so we're going to rebuild. So they took out the loans and rebuilt their houses, remodeled their houses. Now, it's about a year after that, another flood. Wiped them all out again. Second time. Whoa. Just making conversation with the pastor. We're on our way to this church for that meeting. I just made conversation. I said, I bet your church is helping the flood victims. He said, oh no. My board said we don't help stupid people. This is a quote. We don't help stupid people. They had a chance to sell. They didn't. It's their own fault. I thought in my mind, oh, Jesus, am I in trouble? Because I'm one of the stupid people. Now, you could say to that church, I could have got up that night at that church and said, listen, you guys need to help the flood victims. Come on, we're going to take up an offering. I could have forced them into that. They would have done an act of mercy, but they wouldn't have had mercy because they didn't feel anything. They didn't look at stupid people and say, oh, I can imagine how they feel, what they're going through. Mercy says, I identify you to the point that I see, feel what you're feeling, go through what you're going through. I hurt the way you hurt. Reese Howe, the great intercessor, was burdened by God to pray for the famine, a country that was having nothing but famine, and people were starving to death. He was to pray for them. It was not happening in his country. It was happening in the other country. He was to pray for them. He could not pray for them. He struggled in prayer for them. Finally, you know what he did? He quit eating. If they can't eat, I can't eat. And he began to be an intercessor. They starve, I starve. And an identification took place whereby he began to have mercy. Because he felt what they felt. He saw things the way they saw them. He experienced. Isn't it interesting? Jesus is a faithful, merciful, and faithful high priest. Why? Let me quote that verse for you again. Therefore, in all things, he had to be made like his brethren. He could not have mercy and sit on a throne and be the second member of the Trinity and have mercy on us. No, mercy on us came because of what? He leaped off that throne and became man and walked where we walk and felt what we felt and saw the pain and felt the pain and went into where he hung on a cross and felt the awfulness of separation from the Father and felt the death that takes place, the destructiveness of sin itself. And in that awfulness, he so identified with us that he could have mercy. 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 See, this is a feeling. Do you have the mind of Christ? Are you filled with him to the point that you see things the way he sees them? You feel about people the way he feels about them. You extend forgiveness to them the way he. See, merciful is a focus. It's always focused on others. Merciful is a feeling because it identifies, it sees the affliction, the turmoil, the hurt someone is in, and so identifies with that turmoil and hurt that we begin to feel. You begin to feel how they feel and suffer like they suffer in that. The third one is what we're calling foundation. It's the very heart of the word itself. And it says something of what we've already said. The Hebrew word for mercy in the Old Testament, can't pronounce it, but there it is. It's untranslatable. You cannot translate the word. Impossible. Can't be done. You can talk about the concept, but you can't translate the word. Again, this Hebrew word in the Old Testament, which is translated mercy, is the ability to get inside the other person's skin and see with their eyes. It has the idea of sympathy. The Greek word for sympathy is two words put together. The first one is the idea of together with. The second one is to experience and to suffer what they're suffering. It's sympathy. Isn't it interesting that in Romans 8:17, Paul says, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with him. Suffer with him. Paul is not proposing that we look at a cross and say, oh, I can imagine how painful that was. That's not what he's proposing. He is proposing, and this is so biblical, folks, he is proposing such an identification with Jesus that you and I get so ingrained, linked, involved, identified with the person of Jesus Christ that what is going on in him literally begins to go on in us. It's interesting in 2 Corinthians, he begins to talk about things like, oh, I bear in my body the dying. His death has literally been planted within me, and I'm suffering, bleeding, dying, feeling, seeing, sensing, caring. What moves him moves me. What burdens him burdens me. What tears him up tears me up. What makes him mad makes me mad, because I have so identified with him. That's wow. It's interesting also that Paul kicks that over into our realm. 1 Corinthians 12:26. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with him. Whew. That would be some church, wouldn't it? You mash your thumb on Monday, we all come with a swollen thumb on Sunday. You got a wayward child that you're weeping over? We all stayed up all week weeping together. That's the identification he's talking about. Mercy. Congratulations! You're the merciful ones. That's what you guys have. Now, how could he possibly say that? That isn't even realistic. I mean, is that true in your life? Is it true in my life? Good night. You know why he says this? It's the sequence. See, the first 4 Beatitudes are the stage. Isn't it interesting that this is the 5th Beatitude? And the first 4 set you up for this. Blessed are the poor in spirit. You're absolutely helpless, devastated. You're destitute. You're poor in spirit. You're wiped out. You have no resource at all. You were meant to be that way. He built you that way. You're not that way because you sinned. You didn't blow it and become that way. You've always been that way. You're supposed to be that way. You're a loser. He made you to be a loser. In fact, you are so helpless that what has happened here is his unlimited resource of his person has literally embraced you. And in that embrace, you have become the kingdom. In that embrace. So the kingdom is not God minus you, and the kingdom is not you minus God. The kingdom is you and Jesus in intimate embrace. And in that intimate embrace, all your helplessness is filled with his unlimited resource. And woo, congratulations, you're the kingdom, man. You're the kingdom. In fact, you mourn. Congratulations, you're mourning. What's this mourning? In that embrace, you constantly respond in your helplessness to his resource. That's what causes you to embrace his resource, your helplessness. So you mourn in the midst of your helplessness, and yet that is the response that brings you into the constant, unlimited resource of his person and his embrace. And the Spirit of God literally is your comforter, embracing you and wrapping his arms around you. Well, congratulations, you meek people, because the very nature of God, his meekness, is spilling through you, and you're inheriting the whole land and identifying and experiencing your physical world on a level that is absolutely mind-boggling, because you are inheriting the land itself in this embrace. Congratulations to you. In fact, wow, congratulations, you hungering and thirsting people, because you are so embraced in the unlimited resource of his being that you hunger for more of him. And as you hunger for more, he fills you. And as you are filled, you hunger for more, and he fills you. And you hunger for more, and he fills you. And you hunger for more, and you're just all wrapped up in this intimate congratulations. Why? You're full. Congratulations. You identify with your world in a new way. Congratulations. You're filled with the comforter. Congratulations. You are the kingdom in his embrace. Are you surprised if you begin to feel like he feels? Wouldn't you just naturally? I mean, this wouldn't be a Saturday seminar on how to feel merciful. You couldn't pull this off. You couldn't make yourself be this. You couldn't muscle yourself. You couldn't discipline yourself into this one. This is a spill out of the first 4 Beatitudes, of the embrace of his person, which begins to create something in you that lets you see, feel, care. Well, I don't feel that way. Would that not be a sign that I don't know him like I should? Well, we don't help stupid people. Is that not a sign that maybe we're not? Well, I'm not interested in that. Haven't you just put a sign on your forehead, a tattoo on your brow that said, I don't know Jesus? Because this is the response of the Jesus. I want the book of Acts. I want to be the early church that was so filled with you that they saw the need in their congregation and they went out and sold their properties. They couldn't help themselves. I want to be an early apostle who walks down the temple and sees a lame man that he's ignored all of these years and he just can't leave him alone now, because something inside of him won't let him. There's a merciful thing coming out of him. He's so filled with you, Jesus, that he just can't leave that lame man who's nobody, lame man who's nothing, a lame man who he hadn't got anything to contribute, but he just can't leave him alone. He just can't help himself. I want to be in the book of Acts, God, where a Peter steeped in his tradition and in his Judaism and the defilement laws and hating, absolutely despising all Gentiles, breaks down the walls and embraces them. And they all are filled with the Spirit of God because somehow it broke over the realms of prejudice and we were so filled with you. We felt towards Gentiles like you feel, Jesus. And our walls came down. I want to be like an Apostle Paul, God, who walks down the street and a slave girl, who's she? A slave girl in the bondage of men who are being used, who are using her, a slave girl, and he can't stand it. Why? There's just this mercy thing in him. He should ignore her, but can't. I want to be a Paul and Silas in a midnight jail with a bleeding back and hands in stocks, singing, and a jailer's about to kill himself, but we can't have that. And mercy begins to spill out for the one who has persecuted us and jailed us. And I want something inside of me that I can't help it. I just can't help it. How can I get to know you like that, Jesus? How can you and I get together on that level? And Lord, I've used all my excuses. Well, it's the way I was raised. It's just my culture. It's just my personality. I've used all the excuses for the reason I am the way I am. When I'm done with that, I want to cry out to you. Oh God, have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. Have mercy on me. You be the merciful one this morning, oh Jesus, and pull me to your heart until I can be the merciful one, extending your presence in my world. And if truth be known, God, probably every single one of us here this morning, we've got situations, we've got people, we've got stuff. We've got feelings. We've got some stupid people in our lives. Have mercy on me, God. Could you change my mind, my feelings about how I look at them and feel about them? Have mercy on me. Bring me into your heart. Bring me into your heart. Heads are bowed. Altars open. Got anything that in you that pulls you to his heart today? Would you like to know him on this level? Would you like to be a vessel through which his mercy? Would you like to feel like he feels? Could we join him today? In such identification, in such oneness, would it be safe to turn ourselves loose in the core of his Spirit, to abide there? Congratulations, you merciful ones. Congratulations. Congratulations. Oh, I can't talk to you anymore. I got to pray.